Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about the new evolutions and upgrades that have just gone live in North America. So, I apologize for not releasing much content lately. I've not been doing so well health-wise, but with that out of the way, let's take a look at all these new and exciting stuff that we now have to potentially play with. So, first off, we have Ordeal Aten, and similarly to the other Ordeal evolutions, they feature potentially none or minimal amounts of skill boosts, which can make it challenging to, get transformed for your other cards and start the process, so to speak. But on the other hand, if you're playing a team without much transformation or high skill boost needs, Ordeal cards can have certain value for sure. And A10 is definitely a strong rainbow solution because they have immense personal damage despite the fact that they can't be limit broken, because their active skill is a 3-turn cooldown which increases their damage cap to 6 billion, and with 5 attribute awakenings, levitation, the sun awakening if relevant, and devil and dragon killer, they can deal spectacular amounts of damage against a wide variety of encounters. And when this active skill is used, you give the damage cap boost for yourself and friend's leader, which means A10 could be hitting 18 billion damage, and it creates a rainbow board. So it creates 4 of every element plus hearts and then jammers. So that means on a 5x4 board, you will only produce your 5 colors, because basically, like, board changers, they work and they look left to right and they'll make the 5 colors, and then that's 20 orbs, and then you can't make any more. So on 5x4 boards, just keep in mind that it's not going to be as great if you actually wanted to heal. And the orb enhancement tied to this active skill is nice because it helps ensure that damage is plentiful. As a leader, they can definitely function as a strong leader that does not transform. And if enough orb generating active skills, or even just in theory 3 A10s, you don't have to worry about transforming. You can just start popping these board changers and you can go on your merry little way of bonus movement time. Just be mindful that you don't have auto follow attack, and technically with his active skill you only make 4 hearts, so it's not really a reliable strategy to try and get a 5th heart orb present, because most of the orbs will be overwritten. So pair something of auto follow attack and you'll have a merry old time. But it's nice that they don't transform, so they could in theory inherit something on top of themselves that is high impact, like 3-4 turns of haste or big delays. This is oftentimes what I do with my Ordeal cards when I actually play with them. Because they have usually low cooldowns, minimal skill boosts, I compensate for the fact that they can inherit a big impact active skill. For Megedra, they are a truly farmable card, and their Ordeal form, I like the art. It's kind of creepy. It looks pretty cool. They can have 3 10 combos, levitation, and 4 enhanced wood combos, so potentially large amounts of damage if you match multiple wood orbs. Their active skill doesn't actually make wood orbs, though, so you have to find other ways to generate it. And on a 5-turn cooldown, you give 2 times attack for your leader and wood attribute cards, which is obviously nice. And then you get half damage and increased damage cap to 8 billion for themselves and your leader for 1 turn. So you can't really system this card, but it's potentially a semi-large shield on a 5-turn cooldown with some damage offensive might. I'm not particularly excited for Megedra just because I'm just trying to think of a place where we can really utilize them efficiently, because many teams have their own shields brought along. Like, think of like Bartender, Toka, and Daki. Daki's bring a looping shield of 35%. Yes, it's less than 50% shield, but it's going to be hard to squeeze in Megedra unless you actually need that extra shield for some certain purpose. So I feel like it's a nice card to have. It's obviously purely farmable, so because of that, they're probably not going to give it too much power. But beyond just basically a damage stick with 1-turn shield on a 5-turn cooldown, it's not even that big of a shield. It's just not so great. But remember, it is quote-unquote farmable and free, and therefore you should just make it anyways. For Dark Metatron in her Ordeal form here, she has only 2 skill boosts, which again is a pretty normal trend for these Ordeal evolution cards. Levitation, double 10, Moon Awakening, double VDP. So if you match a 3x3 box, you're going to do spectacular amounts of damage. And her active skill is a wonderfully short 3-turn cooldown, so easy to inherit over. Technically, 3 Dark Metatrons are a system. You swap her blue sub-attribute to a dark sub-attribute, you can deal potentially 5 billion damage per attribute for 3 turns, and it lasts for 3 turns, and it's a 3-turn cooldown. So she has potentially permanent uptime. So it's like she has double damage cap, but she doesn't actually have to use the double damage cap latent, which means she can just load up on skill delay resists or like killer latents or whatever you actually need. It's actually quite nice and flexible in that sense because she's technically dealing more damage than double damage cap cards, and it's only a 3-turn cooldown, so in theory, 3 Metatrons could create a system. Drawback is, this active skill, it cuts your health to 1, so you better make sure you heal up. It only changes 9 non-hearts to dark, which means you're not actually producing dark orbs. So you cut your health to 1, and if you don't have enough heart orbs on the board, you're going to have a tough time healing back up, and that's obviously a bit of a problem. She gives herself 2 times personal damage and the damage cap for 3 turns. So she's essentially a massive damage stick who can be an orb generator to close an orb generation loop, but you don't produce heart orbs with her active skill, and cutting her health to 1 does give a certain amount of risk. But again, it's essentially 15 billion damage every single turn, most likely. Hopefully, especially when you match that 3x3 box or you're playing in Moon Dungeons, should give her enough damage output, hopefully there. But again, it's nice to have. Maybe you have a bunch of Dark Metatrons lying around, you can make this form. But like other Ordeal cards that receive their new evolutions, their other versions receive various buffs. So Aten in this form here has received, I believe, an extra 10 combo awakening. Active skill, it's a 3-turn cooldown. It does give you the orb movement time, but their damage output is only going to be great if you actually, utilize the double damage cap latent. But the Ordeal A10, they could simply just use the VDP latent and they can ignore damage void, and they could just have like 2 SDRs alongside of it, similar cooldown. Point of the matter is, you're probably just going to have A10 in his Ordeal form unless it's the blue version or Weapon Assist. First Weapon Assist has Killers, Dragon, Devil, 2 seconds of orb movement time. Be mindful of the very short base cooldown, it might overcharge. Red A10 has now a damage cap, a personal damage cap increase on his 2-turn cooldown. If you need to plug in the orb generation loop for your rainbow teams, Red A10 can be a solution, but it's really like, why would you use their other forms when the Ordeal form is kind of doing what these rainbow cards are doing, but arguably much better? So I would probably just stick with that Ordeal form there. On the flip side, Blue A10 is completely different overall, so they're actually a form that's worth pursuing and potentially even keeping and utilizing now, because their awakenings have been modified, and they have 2 Ls, so they can take your assist recovery latent. They have double 10 combo, and with their awakenings or super awakenings, they could have levitation, so their damage output will at least be respectable in those super gravity dungeons. They have enhanced heart orbs, so they can heal up, and they have this guard break. So from an awakenings point of view, they look pretty great, especially against devil type spawns, but their active skill has been dramatically improved. It's still a 5-turn looping shield on a 5-turn cooldown, but it now gives themselves 5 times personal damage for 5 turns. So 5 times personal damage is the equivalent to another 10 combo. So if you think about it, they are triple 10 combo, double L, Devil Killer, 4 enhanced heart orbs, and a levitation awakening. So they can deal meaningful damage, they can heal you up, they can be your looping shield. A10 has just definitely jumped up to being significantly more valuable for blue-based cards. Obviously, Grigori is one of the more popular wood-based looping shields, and Grigori has the advantage of more health, but A10 brings the extra level of utility with that L, so therefore you can recover your assists, because it's kind of a mechanic you need to have in most given dungeons, and it's nice to have the flexibility of not needing to bring other specific cards to recover your assists. For green A10, it's a looping attack buff. It's a 12-turn cooldown, but it's really 6 turns with the skill charge awakening. It gives you potentially a large attack buff that's looping, but that's nothing special or exciting in this day and age. I'd rather stick with their other forms. On the other hand, Dark A10 gives you a walloping 5 seconds of orb movement time, and they technically have respectable damage with 4 5-attribute awakenings, but their active skill really doesn't do much in all honesty. Like, it's removing orb blocks, RCV, and a small attack buff for themselves. Like, it's looping RCV, I guess, but like, I feel like you can just find better options overall. For their weapon assist, they have potentially nice offensive might because of 6 OEs in the blue form, 2 seconds of movement time, a 4-attribute awakening. Green form, similar format, except just different OE colors. Same active skills as their base forms. Magedra's Awakenings have been buffed, so it probably makes it a little nicer to play for their Ordeal forms, but there's no real use to use them beyond getting them into their Ordeal forms. Osiris received a buff to their active skill to, I believe, give you 2 turns of their uptime for the movement time and the max HP, but you can just kind of think it's like 2 turns of double max HP is kind of equivalent to 2 turns of 50% damage reduction. It's nothing spectacular nor special, so I just don't feel like it's going to be utilized that much. Dark Metatron, in her original form, she has 5 turns of damage absorption on a 7-turn cooldown, which is a significantly long time, and it does cut your own health. If I'm not mistaken, it's cutting your own health based on the wording. It voids the attribute damage absorption and gives you a board of light and dark. Not a bad thing overall. She does have middling offensive might. I guess with the levitation and you're below half health, maybe it's okay, but I really feel like she's better off in the weapon assist form, because if you play light or dark teams, those enhanced combos will add up. Double team HP is never bad. Attack while below 50% makes it so you might hit harder, but it shares that same active skill of 5 turns of damage absorption, and there are only going to be some situations where you need 5 turns of damage absorption, not damage and attribute, but it's just nice to have the option, so to speak. So I have the weapon assist. I'm going to just remember that it's a good absorption solution. Her Fire Dark form, I'm not super inclined about it because it's a 5-turn cooldown that doesn't really solve mechanics. Yes, it does increase all of your subs' damage cap to 5 billion, gives a board changer, but that's nothing special in this day and age. Weapon Assist is more so about just offensive might with no team HP awakenings for the red form, 2 enhanced fire and 2 enhanced dark combos, and then 5 OEs total with 1 of them being enhanced hard orbs. It's okay. It's nothing special, I feel. The green version of Dark Metatron, I think, will have value in her weapon assist form more so. It does have large TPA damage with 10 TPAs with the potential for levitation, but it's only 1 turn of giant damage reduction. Vastly reduces damage, should be 75%, and it gives 4 combos and a 7x6 board. So she can technically fix problems, and depending on the dungeons you are playing, it might actually be okay. One drawback that I can see is it's technically cutting into like the Daki build, because 2 Dakis is a looping shield. Most of the time that looping shield is enough at 35%, but for the cases of say like UN6, there's a gigantic hit at the end, and the 35% shield is probably not going to be enough, so Dark Metatron may end up being used in this green form, but I feel like it's more so for the weapon assist, because for those Daki Toka teams, they give 2 skill bind resist, so if you had skill SBR issues, maybe you can fix them here. 2 team HP, so it's never bad, but 2 TPA awakenings, so that's strong personal damage for the owning card, and it shares that same active skill. So what you can do with this weapon assist is inherit for UN6 on top of a card with a low base cooldown, and then let it overcharge on the very final floor of UN6, and then pop it right before you put it below half health so you can tank that gigantic hit. This weapon assist, I feel like, could be applied to many different teams. Obviously, it's preferable if you are utilizing TPA, but because it's a low turn cooldown, you could inherit it on top of, ideally, say, a transforming card who has a naturally low base cooldown. So, something to consider. And with that being said, those are all the new evolutions and upgrades that have just went live from this latest update. So, with that being said, let me know what you lovely ladies and gentlemen think about all these new upgrades in the comment section down below. Do you think any of them are particularly interesting? And if so, which ones are your favorites? Regardless of that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day and you smile just as much as Aten because they look super cute, and happy puzzling.